Good afternoon and welcome to today's lunch break with the Rabbi. Today it's March 1st, the 17th day of Adar. We just finished celebrating Purim. We are getting closer to Passover now. We are less than a month away for Passover to begin. At this time, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you all this would be a great time to order your shmura matzah, your handmade matzah, or any preparations that you need for Passover to let us know what we can do to help you in selling the chametz, ordering your matzah, or arranging a place for a seder. So as we get ready and closer to the Passover holiday, we will then continue and talk about the Passover holiday. However, today we are going to go back to the Torah reading of this week, in the Torah reading of Parshas Kisisa, as we read in the book of Exodus, continuing the Jewish people's travels in the desert. There was once this mom who bought a few ties for her son that was recently getting married. And on the first week, Shabbat after the wedding, the son comes to the home of his mother wearing the blue tie that his mother got him. His mother looks at him and says, "What? You didn't like the red one? Okay." So next week he puts on the red tie. He walks into the house and his mother tells him, "What? You didn't like the blue one?" So the next week he said, "Listen here, if my mother made me crazy, she didn't like the blue one, didn't like the red one. This week I'm going to put on both ties." He walks into the house, the third Shabbat. He's wearing both ties. His mother looks at him and says, "I knew you were going to get married. That woman is going to make you crazy." There was no winning. One of the greatest things that we find in Judaism, the biggest disappointment, not only in Judaism, but as people as a whole, is people being unappreciative. People not recognizing when good has been done for them. People not showing reciprocation when somebody is kind to them. We sometimes feel dejected, disappointed, rejected, and really turned off by people who don't really understand or get it, to say even just a simple thank you, just recognize and be cognizant of the fact that something good has been done for them. Take an example of this week's Torah reading. The Jewish people come out of the land of Egypt. They have the greatest miraculous events that happen for them in front of them. Crossing of the Red Sea, 10 plagues, Egypt falls in front of their faces. They become billionaires overnight. They're traveling in the desert. Everything is happening for them. Then they come 50 days later, they receive the Torah in the 6th of Sivan. Thunder, lightning, all the great sound effects. God comes down on the Mount Sinai and tells them, do not serve any other gods. Less than 40 days later, they can't hold themselves in. And what do? They go serve a golden calf. Out of everything, a golden calf. Out of everything that happened to them, out of all the experiences that they've gone through, this is what they do? How does that work out? How does that even make sense? Forget about from a religious or spiritual perspective. From a decent human being perspective, where's your appreciation? How do you go serve God after God does all these miraculous events for you, takes you out of 210 years of slavery? Where are you? What did you do? How do you just abandon the faith so easily? Not only that, the question even begs better understanding. Even from a human intellectual perspective, what was their issue? Well, we talk about their issue was that Moses said he'll be back in 40 days. 40 days was up and he didn't come down. And here they go, they make a golden calf. So if your issues with Moses, take Aaron, take Hur, take there's many other leaders that were there. Why make a golden calf? Why make another God? Your problem wasn't with God. You never saw God to begin with. Why all of a sudden you say Moses doesn't come down 40 days later? Boom, we're making a new God. And they say, this is the God that took us out of Egypt. What, a golden calf took you out of Egypt? You got a problem with a leader? Your leader died? Find a new one. What were the Jewish people thinking? And to say that they were foolish people, we know that the Jewish people in the time of the desert that came out of Egypt were godly people, spiritual people. They were people that understood and appreciated godliness. They saw it happen in front of their eyes. They weren't just some dejected rejects who couldn't think of what to do and decided to make a golden calf. So there must be something deeper into the story here. And as we look a little bit deeper, we see that the concept of idolatry wasn't just as we know it today. You know, there was once a great Talmudic sage that was once having a very difficult time learning a passage in the Talmud. And the Talmud recalls that at night he had a dream that Menashe, the great king, the son of Hezekiah, who put an idol in the holy temple, came and explained to him the Talmud. And he looks up at Menashe and says, I don't understand. How do you explain to me a Talmud passage concerning idolatry if you were one of the greatest idolaters? Though he did repent at the end of his life, but he was one of the greatest idolaters. Menashe looks at him and says, would have you been in my time, you would have been picking up your garments because it would slow you down from running towards idolatry. The passion, the desire, the willingness to serve idolatry was something beyond comprehension we can't understand. But let's go beyond that. But these Jewish people, they saw godliness. How did they come to do this sin? So the Talmud explains to us that at the time, as we know, the Jewish people created this golden calf. Why a golden calf out of everything? And some want to suggest in the Midrashic interpretations that the Jewish people, they were coming from the land of Egypt, where they were served idolatry. To the extent when the Jews were in Egypt and God was saving the Egyptians over the Jews, the angels on high said, what's the difference? They're both idolaters. What did the Egyptians serve in Egypt? Were sheep. What's the next level beyond the sheep, or what's the next galaxy? What's the next mazal? Is a calf. So they said, well, the sheep didn't work for us. Maybe we have to go back to time one, to the calf. But what were they thinking? And over here, it takes us a little deeper into what exactly they were thinking. Share with you a quick story about the third Chabad Rebbe. The third Chabad Rebbe was well renowned as a halachic authority throughout White Russia and a miracle worker. He had thousands of followers throughout Russia and beyond. There was once a fellow who was not necessarily a believer, or I would say he was an opponent to the Hasidic movement at the time. They were called Bisnagdim. And he had a daughter who wasn't able to walk. And they didn't know what to do. He went from doctor to doctor. Finally, his wife told him, listen here. There's the well-known great Hasidic master, the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe. Why don't you go to him for a blessing? He says, but I don't believe in him. He says, big deal. You go to him. Works, it doesn't work. Works, it works. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Let's go. So reluctantly, following his wife's advice, he takes his daughter in the wheelchair and he goes to the Hasidic master, the third Chabad Rebbe. He walks in reluctantly into his room, takes a bag of ruble, puts it down on the table and says, here, make my daughter feel better. Tzemach Tzedek looks at him and says, takes the money and says, I don't need your money, and takes the coins and throws it on the floor. With that, the girl gets out of her wheelchair and goes down and picks up all the coins. Quickly, this fellow says, quick, let's get out of here before they'll say that he made a miracle and you're walking. Today and then, we don't sometimes acknowledge and realize miracles that are happening in front of our lives. There are so many miracles that happen, and we look for ways to cover it up. And we create idols, golden calves, and say, this is the one that the miracle happened. This is the reason why the miracle happened. And we create excuses and reasons of why these events in our life are maybe not considered the greatest blessings and not considered miracles. We can see the biggest thing happen in our life, and we don't always recognize and acknowledge that they're transformative. Even more so. You ever have a one-time event, you see a flash of lightning, you're impressed, you walk away, but very good. It didn't permeate you. It didn't change you. It doesn't make you a different person. In order for something to be integrated, you have to be willing to understand and appreciate that this should integrate and become part of your life. Take, for example, the Jewish people at the time. They lived their entire life for 210 years submerged in idolatry. And all of a sudden, they see these one-time events, miraculous events flashing in front of their eyes. So yes, they became committed to God. But the moment there was some type of drama in their life, or the moment there was some type of moment that they had to question, they automatically fell back to their old self, which was idolatry. Not because they didn't believe in God. On the contrary, they believed that idolatry was there to assist God. So they said, you know what? God can't help us all the time. We're going to have this idol. And therefore, they didn't look to make another Moses. They looked to make another God, another assistant, or something else that's going to be able to deal with them in the physical. Because idolatry, the definition of idolatry is that God is all there spiritual, and therefore I need to use different galaxies, different mediums that to put my trust in because God won't deal with them. That was their mistake. That's where they went wrong. because they felt, and this was a mistake, it wasn't out of foolishness, but on the contrary, they went back to stage number one, what they were normally inclined to believe, which was idolatry, and the belief that the spiritual was temporarily, and now we need to go back to the physical things that are going to help us control our life. Because which normal person would believe that a calf made out of gold will help them? But they felt it was a medium of the physical because they couldn't attain a level of spiritual. Sometimes we think, how foolish. The people then serving something of gold, a calf, what's it going to do for them? But we don't realize that today's day and age, that unfortunately, that is our trend as well. Think about it. The moment the person gets into trouble, don't worry, I got a good lawyer who will help me out. A person's not feeling well, I got a good doctor, I got a good surgeon, I got a good this. We forget that it's God that helps the lawyer, helps the doctor, or helps the financial individual bring you the things you need and help you get the things you need. It's these people, the mediums themselves, are not who to be served and cherished. They are just agents of the one above. And the golden calf was that exact same thing. They were serving the golden calf as the agent, as the actual thing, instead of a medium of connecting them with God. Everything we have in life, starting from the finances that we have, to the food on our table, to the blessings in our life, are all agents from God that we should be able to appreciate and serve God and recognize it comes from God. The moment we start giving more credit to the mediums than to the source, we are serving a golden calf. But it teaches us also another important lesson. How did the Jewish people, after such great events in their life, turn back to idolatry? Was because that was what they were educated as children. That's what they were entrenched with for so many years of our life. This message is so important to every single one of us as parents, and even people who are just educating themselves. We have to remember that everything a child sees and hears, or everything we see and hear in our formative years of our life, has an impact. And we should be able to be strong and recognize that even when the going gets going and the tough gets tough, not to fall back to something that we're really not to fall prey to some type of addiction or whatever it may be. But when we give our children and we give ourselves the strength and the fortitude, the reasoning and the accomplishment, the knowing that there's a God who's always watching over us, the recognition to be thankful for God that is always watching over us, even when it gets tough, the faith will be there, the appreciation will be there, the greatness of our belief will be there, and we won't fall prey to the idolatry, serving the medium, the agents, over the one who really sent them. Every single one of us in our own life needs to make sure that we don't fall prey to serving the golden calf, to recognize and appreciate that everything we have comes from God. As we read just yesterday in the Hayom Yom and the daily sayings that the Rebbe taught us, that everything we have, that a businessman knows, that when he goes to make the deal, that he's not going to make one more penny more than God decided, and he's not going to make one less penny than God decided. Having the absolute faith in God, that God is what brings us and gives us what we need, gives us the absolute trust in God, and makes it all happen. Doesn't allow us to fall back and start believing that it's the lawyer, the doctor, the employer, or anybody else gives us what we need. It's all from God. Let us educate ourselves, our children, and people around us to have that commitment. This way, we'll be able to stand strong, whatever comes our way. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Looking forward to continuing the story, this amazing story of this week's Torah reading about the sin of the golden calf and Moses breaking the 2 tablets. We'll talk about it tomorrow at 1 p.m. God bless you and have a great day.